Hey there, it's Kurt Traits here with another video, and today I'm going to show you how to fix or resurface your foggy or hazy headlamps. And as you can see here, my car has pretty faded headlights. The top or the upper lip here is pretty faded, and this upper part here, because it faces straight up towards the sun, is really faded and on the edges here. The bottom part isn't too bad. These were, my car was originally in Florida for the first couple of years of its life, and I think it was there for 3 or 4 years, and it's really faded on the tops. The bottoms have some scratches too, so I'm going to show you how to resurface these with wet sanding and using a clear coat that is UV resistant, so they hopefully will not fade again quickly. Just a quick note, sanding alone is not enough. You have to use some sort of sealant or protectant on the headlight. I did it one time with my Jeep, and I just sanded it and it looked great. It looked awesome, but in about 3 or 4 months it would look just as bad, if not worse, than it was before I started sanding it. So you have to use some sort of UV protectant. So here's a quick before shot. Here's the front left headlight. As you can see, it's not super bad, but again, up here on the top, you can see right about here is where this line starts. Up here on the top, it is really yellowed and hazy looking up on the top, and again down towards the bottom it's not too bad. And then here's over on the other side, about the same amount of wear on this side, and you can just see that line where it goes from clear up and then gets really foggy up on top. As you can see, the taillights are like completely clear the whole way through. So it was definitely parked facing the sun towards the front. Okay, so for the first step of this process, you're going to need a bucket of water, like so. You're going to need a bunch of different grit sandpaper, and you're going to start with the coarsest grit sandpaper first. I'd start around 400 or 500, and the lower the number, the grittier or the bigger the sand particles are on the sandpaper. So it's going to be a coarser grit of paper and leave bigger scratches. The higher the number, the smoother the sandpaper is. And when you get up to the higher amounts, like 2000 grit, it almost feels like paper. It doesn't even feel very gritty at all. So you're going to want to go from the lowest grit up towards the highest grit. So around 500, jump up to 1000, 1500, 2000. You could even go up to 2500 if you wanted to. But it depends on how bad your headlights are and what you want the final product to look like. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get your sandpaper wet. The first time you want to go in one direction. The next time you go up to the next highest grit, you want to go in the opposite direction, and you alternate. So take 500 horizontal. When you're all done with that, 1000 vertical, 1500 horizontal, 2000 vertical again, okay? Before you start sanding, you're going to want to use painter's tape to cover any of the spots so you don't accidentally sand on the paint. And you can also lift your hood up so you don't have to worry about sanding this or taping off this part of the car. Alright, now we're going to start sanding. If you look here, you can see the plastic just dripping down on here. That's good, that's what you want. You want to take all that yellowy plastic off. So you can use the water to get most of the gunk off of there, and you can kind of see if it's still a little yellow. If it's still yellow, you need to sand more on your first coat, because most of the yellow should come off on your first and second passes with the sandpaper, your first 2 grits. And then afterwards, the thinner sandpapers, the less coarse sandpapers, are more to just polish it to get the big deep scratches out. You may see more scratches after your first 2 coats with the coarser sandpaper, but you should be getting the yellow out too. And the later coats, or the layer passes with the thinner sandpaper, should get the scratches out too. Alright, so it's 300 grit. We're going to go up to 500 or 1000 grit. And this one's much smoother already. When you feel it, you can tell. We're going to go the opposite direction too. And you can tell it's working because the little cloudiness in your water should turn less yellow and turn more white in there, in the water that's dripping off the headlight. Like now I can see it's white, and before it was very yellow. And again, this is it depends on how much effort you put in. If you just do a quick sand and then be done with it and spray it real fast, you're not going to have a very good result. You really need to take your time and make sure you get all the little scratches out, and make sure you do a really good coat of each grade of sandpaper so you can make a nice smooth finish. It's just like painting almost. A lot of it's the prep work before you do the spray, and what it looks like after and how well it holds up depends on how well you do each step and take your time with it. And you can see how these the tape's kind of falling off a little bit. The biggest thing you want the tape on there for is the first pass, because the super gritty sandpaper is going to do a number on your paint. If you go over just a little bit with the finer grits, it's only going to polish your paint a little bit. And just be careful not to go over it too much, and try and keep your tape on there as best you can. But a little sanding on the paint with the really high grit sandpapers is not that big a deal. This is already much clearer, and again, there's a few little scratches that I can see in here. But the higher grit sandpaper should take these little scratches out. Onto the 1500. And we're going to go back the opposite direction again. Go down to the 2000 grit. This is after I did the same for the passenger headlight. And you can see just how much of this plastic came off when I was sanding, and that doesn't even include what came off in the water and in my bucket. So you can see there's a lot of material that comes off when you sand. I'm gonna dry it off here and see what it looks like here. It's definitely not yellow, which is a good sign. It's a little foggy though. Alright, the last thing I'm going to use is I'm going to use a little rubbing compound in here to try and polish this up before we spray it with the UV clear coat. Alright, so now you're going to want to tape off again. I washed the car earlier today to get all the extra residue off, and I let it dry for a few hours before I'm going to do the last step with the spraying. I'm going to tape it off really well, and then we will spray the clear coat. Okay, now I got it all taped up with my paper here. Not the best tape job, and I recommend taking the headlights off if it's not super hard on your car, or if you don't want to have to worry about overspray, take the headlights off. I'm not too worried about it, and I don't want to have to take the whole bumper off to get the headlights out, so I'm just taping it off like this. Wipe them down one last time with a dry, clean microfiber cloth just to get any dust off. And yeah, then you're going to start spraying. All right, whenever you spray clear coat or anything, make sure you read the directions. Follow directions on the can because that's the best way to get a good finish. And make sure you wear proper protective gear. I just have Rust-Oleum 2-time Ultra Cover Semi-Gloss Clear Painter's Touch. The reason I didn't go for 2K Clear is because I've heard it's really caustic stuff, and you should really only be using it if you have a professional paint booth, so that's why I went with this. It's a little less dangerous for your health. Either way, I'm going to be wearing full goggles, full respirator, latex gloves, and full skin covering because you don't really want to get it on your skin if you can help it. Alright, so I did about 3 coats. It's pretty warm out and it's in direct sunlight here, so it's drying pretty quick. You don't want to wait till it fully dries before you do the next coat though. You want it to be a little wet still. You just don't want to overload it too much on one coat because then it'll run. I found it still looks hazy if you don't put enough on or if you hold the can too far away. It says about 10 to 16 inches. I think on a little bit closer side, so right around 10 inches. It's right around where you want to be, and don't be afraid to put it on a little bit heavy. Again, not so much that it runs, but if it's looking hazy, you probably didn't coat it enough. You'll have to do a little bit more. And as you put on the coats over, it will start to flush out and make it look nice and clear. And again, don't stop when you're moving. Always make sure your hand is moving when you're applying the paint. And that's how you do it. We'll see how it turns out. So I just sprayed them and I took off the paper so it doesn't flap around in the wind and touch them and mess them up. They look really clear right now, and I'm hoping they stay that way when they dry, and I hope they stay that way for a long time. I'll get some pictures here, and I'll compare them to what it looked like before, and especially up here on top, it's way clear, and I'm hoping it stays looking like this because these look really nice. I'm actually surprised at how well they turned out. Here's the other side, same thing. Just so much clear. And again, I'll post in the comments after about 6 months and see if they stayed clear, because last time I did it without doing a UV clear coat over the top, they yellowed again really quickly. So I'll post an update in the comments.